Okay, so let's get started. So thank you, Sudhish, for accepting the invite and join me in my podcast or these sessions. So those who are in the audience, I'll just give a quick introduction about this Canada IT Club or these initiatives. Then we'll get on to the introduction. So basically, Canada IT Club is just an initiative to bring in all the IT professionals in Canada under one umbrella so that we can promote professional networking in Canada and also to share information and news about what is happening in the IT industry in Canada. So, as you all know, like IT market in Canada is very small, limited to very few places compared to US, UK, and India. So we are trying to build connections with the people of belonging to the same network, and we have these sessions uh, regularly, like mostly every week, not during the holidays, but mostly every week. We have these sessions, bringing in some of the industry experts on some specific topic of their area of expertise. And also we have a lot of sessions for job seekers trying to boost the job search in Canada. So a lot of the people who come from a different part of the world to Canada is having hard time getting adjusted to the Canadian work culture or understanding how the job market works in Canada. So we have these sessions where we try to explain how the industry works in Canada, and we try to help out each other during this job search process. So today we have Sudhish, who is a portfolio manager from TD Bank, and I have invited him for guiding us through uh, the transformation of the QA to QE and to understand what are the latest trends in the quality engineering. So, welcome Sutish to the show. Uh, and there is a one disclaimer. Whatever this session is purely on basis of, it's a purely informational session, and whatever the views expressed in this session are purely personal opinions, and Sudhish doesn't represent TD Bank today, and he's I'm sorry. Whatever we are discussing today, it doesn't represent the view of our employers, customers, or clients. So this is purely an informational session, just trying to share the information to understand for everyone, to help everyone to understand what is happening currently in the market. So thank you, Sudish.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Sudhir, for inviting me for this session. Happy to be here. So, as Sudhir mentioned, I'm not representing TD in this call. So, this is purely an informational session. And all the information passed in this session will be purely my personal opinion based on my experience and what I have seen in the industry. So, with that, we'll get started. So, today's topic is QA to QE transformation, right? So, I'll give an overview on what is the context, why this shift happened, and what are the trends in the industry, right? So just to set the context, so if you look at the past 5 to 10 years, we have seen a paradigm shift in terms of customer behavior due to the consumerization of IT, or in simpler terms, using customers using mobile devices for work and play. So as a result of that, we are seeing that various industries are going through a massive digital revolution. And with the consumerization of IT, companies are exploring various methods to make their product to have a strong focus on digitalization and omni-channel experience. So what that means is, irrespective of the channel the customer logs in, they should get the same experience, be it the desktop, laptop, mobile devices, or iPad, or any kind of Android device. They should have the same experience. And also there is a great focus on integrating this Internet of Things, integrating this deep learning, predictive analytics, AI. And also we have transformed from mere user experience to individual specific user experience for the application. And there is also a great focus by the companies to be first in the market with quick product improvement life cycles, and also stay aware of their competitors. So if you look at the market, the major drivers in determining a product success are their global outreach, quick time to market, and feature rich design. So, as a result of all these digital disruption and changes happening in consumer behavior, there is a great focus on delivery transformation, which means alignment to DevOps, establishing early customer feedback loop, continuous integration and delivery. And as a result, there is a focus on renewing the or moving the quality upstream, which is also known as start left testing or shift left testing. So if you look at in the back in those days, we used to have these releases once in a year, once in 6 months. But with all this digital disruption and consumerization of IT, the corporates are looking at deployments on a day-to-day basis so that they can address the new requirements from the customers. And on the other side, back in those days when we do this big bang deployment, right? People have to spend sleepless nights, and if something goes wrong in the code, they have to roll back. It's a lot of what do you call? It's a highly complicated process with a lot of chances for vulnerability to errors, right? So if something goes wrong, they have to roll back, and that results in a lot of cost overhead and effort overhead and employee dissatisfaction. As a result, the new approach is to have small increments of work packets or requirements going into production on a day-to-day basis, so that the deployment and the requirements that is going into or the features that is going into production is more predictable. And if something goes wrong, they can fix it very quickly. So it's easy to handle. So that's why there is a lot of focus on this uh, implementing the scaled agile framework, shift left testing, start left testing. And if you look at companies like Amazon and Google, they do daily multiple deployments on a daily basis and in a very small packets of work. So as a result, there is a lot of focus on automation and automated testing solutions, specifically on the quality engineering area. And everybody want to go faster to market and reduce the overall cost. So the quality assurance organization has a bigger role to play. So this resulted in the evolution from assurance to engineering. So quality engineering pushed the testing to start left with a focus on be involved in the software design so that appropriate test could be identified to test the core functionality, start using mockup framework or virtualization and mock out the dependencies so that the team can move faster in terms of software development without having to wait for the upstream or downstream dependencies to be available. So testing also moved upstream in terms of unit testing, component testing, integration testing, requiring QA to be involved much earlier than they traditionally used to be. So earlier, in the traditional way of testing, what used to happen was that the development team the business will do the requirements analysis and identifying the requirements. Then the development team will develop the code, and they will just focus on their particular area, right? And always everybody thinks that okay, the testing will happen towards end, and the testing team will come and do some magic and fix all the issues. And a lot of times, in order to accommodate all the requirements and the scope, there hasn't been much focus on the quality right from the start. Everybody thinks quality is the responsibility of the testing team, and they used to move all the defects and all the uh, vulnerable code to the testing team, and the testing team will find defects, they will fix it, then again retest, things will break. So it's a lot of overhead and a lot of testing, which results in longer duration of the overall SDLC. So this culminated in the shift from defining the role of quality from that of assurance to the engineering. So instead of simply assuring the quality at a traditional testing phase, like the system integration phase or the business acceptance phase, the push was to start integrating the quality in the entire software development lifecycle to engineer quality instead of just testing for quality. So that's the key message or the key differentiator between quality assurance, and quality engineering, which means engineer for quality instead of just testing for quality right from the start. Now, if you look at the QE evolution, you might have heard about the role definition SDET, software development engineering test. So all this digital disruption, all these transformation that we just discussed resulted in the role definition of a software developer who could build the test infrastructure, identify the testing scope, identify the risks, define quality criteria, start from unit test all the way to the user acceptance testing, and plan a mitigation strategy in case things go wrong. So the role we know today as the SDET, or the software development engineering test, are individuals who could do it all. They could quickly create a test infrastructure, test the functionality, go through the logs, code in case of test failed, to do the root cause analysis of a bug. They also have the skill set to manage a continuous integration, continuous delivery pipelines, to ensure the code kept moving through this pipeline, and work closely with the product managers and other stakeholders to be the voice of the customer on the team. So this is something, basically somebody who can do everything, right? All kinds of testing. And they have also have the possess the skill set even to develop a code as required. So if you compare the traditional testing, as I said, the testing was shifted to the right. Now with the advent of this quality engineering, we are implementing something like a quality filter right from the start. So there is more focus on the requirement analysis, ensuring the quality there, more focus on implementing the unit testing. And as you go towards the right, as you invest more on the left, you find more defects. And as the code goes to the right through the SDLC process, it becomes more and more refined, and more qualities added to the product. So by the time it reaches the production, we shouldn't see as many defects as we used to see in the traditional form of testing. Now, how is it different, right? So there are so many aspects to implement the quality engineering. Sorry, this the new form of testing known as the quality engineering. But you cannot do that single-handedly, right? So many things need to go in hand as a key enablers to implement quality engineering. So first of all, the definition of done, right? So from an agile perspective, when you implement this definition of done and you have multiple partners and cross-functional delivery pods, different team has different interpretation of definition of done. The development team might say that, okay, definition of done is when they are done with their code. And if you have like upstream and downstream system and partners who manage those applications, they might say that my definition of done is when I am done with my piece of code. So we need to first make sure go to production is when we say definition of done. When your product is ready to go into production, that is when you say you're done. That should be the definition of done. So we should first implement, make sure that is the understanding by all our partners. And also make sure you have heavy investment on the automation of the unit test, implementation of unit testing, and the automation of the unit testing, making sure there is a good unit test coverage. Then we should have this in sprint automation, in sprint feature validation. If you have microservices based architecture, make sure you have virtualization of the integrations, so that you are not waiting for your upstream and downstream to be built in order for you to move forward. You're not waiting, sitting here and waiting for your partners to complete their work. So if you look at the overall key enablers, the first one I would say the talent progression. We need to make sure all the employees in the company are there is a investment on improving their quality engineering skills to make them a full stack software engineers who can do both development and testing, and push greater push on unit testing and service layer testing. So if you have a lot of microservices, APIs, make sure you're using the right tools and technologies to do the service layer testing. And also make sure there is a high optimization of UI driven automation. So as we know, if you are from the quality engineering or QA background, when you do automation on the UI, any small change on the screen will result in the script failing. So there is a lot of overhead to fix those scripts, develop new scripts. So make sure you're investing more on the API level testing and optimize as much as possible on the UI level automation. And make sure you are looking at both a front end and back end automation. And then you should have the right amount of test environments and optimized test phases with the use of service virtualization, as we just mentioned. And there are certain tools like CA test, which can be used to virtualize integration points so that the development and testing team can work with the I mean, don't have to wait for the integration points to be ready to do their piece of work. Then the next enabler would be having the right test data approach and using the right test data enabler tools like CATDM, Delphix, which can help you to uh, manufacture the data that is required for the testing. Then another aspect is the non-functional requirements, which includes your performance testing requirements. So again, we need to make sure right from the unit test phase, you are, and when it comes to especially for the performance testing, right, you are making sure you are engineering for performance, then testing for performance of the application right from the start.
Okay, Sudhish, thank you. Thanks for sharing. So a lot of people joined late. So just giving a context. Today Sudhish is explaining how QA has transformed into QE. Also going forward, like in the in the next few minutes, we'll be discussing about the trends of the testings. We'll talk about the future of testing and what are the skill set which you have to gain, and all those things. But Sudhisha, I have a question. When you explained all these things about QE, I just have one question. Like, what are the? I mean, what were the major challenges when we did this transformation from the QA to QE?
Yeah, the main challenge is that making sure you have buy-in from all your stakeholders, right? The second thing is the talent challenges in terms of getting the right talent. So I did mention about that in the optimal world, to do a proper quality engineering, you need to have somebody like with the skills of an SDET, right? So it
Yep.
is very difficult to get that kind of talent because so far in the past so many years and decades, we used to have specialization, right? We used to have people who can do automation, and automation used to be a separate team. The manual testing used to be a separate team. We have specific team for managing the test data. Performance used to be a separate team. So we were in the process of finding the right talent who has uh, all these skills combined, right? So what we did was that when we did the hiring, we tried to hire people with SDET skills, and we were successful to certain extent. But the market is very difficult to find. It's very difficult to find in this market the right skill set. So the second approach what we took was that to upskill our existing employees, right? So we need to look at how we can train those people to have these automation skills, to make them learn the right tools that we are using to do the automation, to do the virtualization, to do the test data management. And obviously, the biggest challenge was making sure your stakeholders understand that quality is not the responsibility of just the quality engineering team, but it is a collective responsibility of all the stakeholders, including the business, the BAs, the technology team, the development team, the infrastructure team. So it's a combined process. So there were a lot of challenges related to that.
Okay. So we have Nishan here. So Nishan, you want to ask a question or add something?
Yeah, I do want to ask
Yeah.
a specific question here,
Sure.
and also to add. So there's a great insight from your end. So, the one thing which I wanted to understand, Sudhish, is most of the time the collaboration or the understanding of the team with respect to the actual objective or the goal that needs to be achieved in terms of KPIs or the actual milestone is missing from the team. And what needs to be done, the logical sequence of the activities. So you did touch upon microservices, APIs, the front end testing, back end testing. Yes, all of these things definitely do need automation. But when it comes to understanding of the actual requirement or finalizing the actual requirement to ensure that what is the end goal, which not just brings in the quality but also compliance to the picture from the various stakeholder, and that combined with the actual effort estimation that is required with respect to the available skill that we have. How do you bridge this gap? Because when we don't have the right skill, that impacts the estimates, and when that is impacted, the entire schedule is impacted.
Right, right. That is a very good question. So there are multiple. I think you touched upon a few things here. So in terms of understanding the requirement, so there are few things to uh, explain here. So I used to tell this to my team as well. So let's say we have like 100 requirements collected, right? And let's say we met all those requirements, and even at that point, we cannot say that we have met 100 percentage of the customer requirements, because there is no guarantee that with those 100 requirements that was collected really represents what the customer wants, right? So I think so the quality should start right from the requirement analysis itself, and that's why this establishing this continuous customer feedback loop is very important, right? And when it is small releases, it is easy to understand the feedback from the customer. Then that feedback goes in the form of requirements back into the backlog, and the development team, the testing team, everybody can work on it and go into production. Now when it comes to estimation in the new model, yeah, I mean, obviously the talent and the skill plays a big role in the velocity of the pod if you're doing an agile. uh, yeah, I mean, we should do our best in terms of our overall mission, vision, and goal of the organization to adopt the process. And the estimation will be based on the skills that we have in the team only. So we cannot estimate when we don't have any SDET, but we cannot estimate from an SDET. So let's say we have a 5 SDET and they can do uh, test 100 requirements in 3 days. But if you don't have the right skills, that 5 days will become 10 days, right? So the estimation will be based on the capacity of your team and the skills of your team. And what we do is by upskilling our team, the skill set of the team, and the overall process in the team, we try to improve that from time to time. And every company, every organization will have their own KPIs and OKRs to define their yearly goals and target in terms of how many user stories and requirements need to go into production with what level of quality, right? So it's a
Yeah.
slow process, but every company has their own goal to achieve.
So, just my 2 cents here, Sudhish, from the overall experience that I gathered. One was to categorize the activities which basically can be performed via automation where we need estate candidates. Two, to have the categories of activities which don't need automation, yet sometimes manual efforts are much quicker and are far effective when it comes to not having that automated. So that's one. Number two is the understanding of the requirements itself, because mostly from the be it QE or QA, the whole definition of done that we have, which defines a specific requirement, most of the time that is not clearly defined for two
Mm-hmm.
reasons. One, lack of knowledge or information that has been retained in the respective vendor side or the customer side, and lack of subject matter expertise due to the the change in the resource management or the dynamic changes that comes into the team structure as people come in and then go out for a number of reasons. So when we have to tackle this is one. Number two is the inclusion of the third party team. Now, most of the time we are working in a multi-stakeholder environment wherein we have a dependency either on one vendor or multiple teams within the same organization, where each of them operate on a different SLA. That has an impact. That also defines what my acceptance criteria is when I go to the UAT and then I go to a cab meeting before I get into production, and how my release
Yeah.
process is. So based on this, when I know that this is my release process, this is my release management plan, this is the way I'm going to do the deployment. It can be rolling up, it can be canary, or it can be blue green approach, whatever may be. Based on these different approaches, if we are able to say that in a reverse way, we're able to identify the strategy. In a reverse way, we are involving the team in the analysis of the discovery phase for them to understand what the requirements are, and then make sure that they understand what is the overall holistic objective is. That's where people will get a better idea what to automate, when to automate. So
Yeah,
that gives
you're
me the
right.
confidence.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. So, see, part of the problem is most of the banks and most of the big corporates that was established like 100 years back or 70 years back, and they started this IT process back in 1960s, right? So a
Yeah.
lot of these companies are following the old process. So that's why if you look at the major banks, when they run the IT, they look up to companies like Amazon, Google, Netflix on how they do their software development lifecycle, how they have aligned different partners, and how they collaborate with each other to reduce the dependencies and focus on the customer centric user stories, right? So that's why every banks, every company uh, uh, are coming out of that old school method and trying to adopt the new way of operating with more efficiency when it comes to the software development lifecycle. So there is a great effort happening across all the banks in Canada and also in North America to operate the overall IT world in a more efficient manner. So they are making deliberate changes in terms of restructuring the user stories from a customer centric standpoint. So that will kind of address the problem that we have with multiple partners of upstream and downstream working in silos, right? So moving forward, we'll have people and departments working collaboratively, focusing on the customer centric scenarios, or known as the customer journey. So there is a lot of effort happening in across the different banks in Canada.
And one final point, Sudesh, last point, because there are other stakeholders also, so I'll not take much time. One final point is the involvement or inclusion of the testing team in the production scenario, the production environment, and the communication that goes to third party application. For example, as a bank, we might send a report to the credit bureau department. So now when this report goes, they have a separate set of application, and the API or the interface that they have might be completely different. So when we are doing an enhancement here, it might also lead to a situation where they must have to do some enhancement on their end to ensure that they are in sync with what we are doing right now. If that is not happening, how do we cater to such kind of requirements which are directly from the production perspective, which
Right,
can't be
right.
tested in the lower regions?
Yeah. So in those cases, because all the banks they will have multiple third-party integration components, they work with other companies to do certain activities, right? So in that case, what we normally do is that in our test environment, we will have the integration, third-party integration points integrated. Now, in any case where we don't have that, that's where you need to look into this virtualization using CADEV test, which will mimic what your third-party integration points are supposed to do, right? So that you get a response as if it is coming from the third-party company, and you can use that to test your end-to-end process. So these are the two approaches normally what we use or what companies use to address that kind of challenges.
Thank you, Sudhish.
Thank
Thanks
you,
for
Sudhish.
better
Thanks,
No
input.
Nisha.
problem.
So, Sudhish, so when we say this, see, we spoke about the SDET who has multiple skill set, right? So, can you just help us understand what are the skill set the SDET should possess in specific?
Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to estate, so there is a categorization in terms of the talent maturity, right? So there is known as 1T pi
Mhm.
X. So one means somebody who has an expertise in a singular domain. T is somebody where somebody has an expertise in a singular domain complemented by additional broad skill sets. And pi will be somebody who has an expertise on two adjacent domains, complemented by additional broad skills. An expert working within a Scrum team for digital function, playing the roles across dev and test. And X talent is what we call as SDET, who has the depth and breadth of across multiple domains and skill sets. So this is somebody who is a full stack software engineer, right? They can do the test driven development, BDD driven automation with full stack software engineering capabilities. They will have the good understanding on agile framework, back end programming, front end programming, automation framework, integrating to automation test with CI/CD pipeline. Have expertise in developing the software, the virtualization using CA dev test, and reduce dependency on external systems. And they will also have knowledge on the production feedback monitoring tools like the Dynatrace,
Hmm.
and they can do performance testing using various tools, JMeter, and other performance testing tools. And they will have knowledge on the test data management, on the CA dev, CA dev test, then the Delphix for virtualizing the
Oh yeah,
data.
test data management. Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So this is a person who has like all the skills, right? You ask them, you
Okay.
name them, they can do it. Whether it is
Okay.
development, and if required, they can also do support, do the development. Because what see, the ideal world is where you have a pod where you have a bunch of software engineers who can do the testing and the development, right? So
Yep.
some people will do the testing, some people will do the development, and this will be interchangeable, right? Sometimes the the person who is doing the testing has bandwidth, and there are a few additional cards that need to be developed. Or she should be able to take up those cards and do the development for that. So that's the ideal world where we would like to see.
So does this mean that upgrading the skill is one of the mandatory things which everyone should be doing, especially the QA or QE?
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. So the future of testing is where the companies are expecting more technical skill set. Now there will be obviously a question: is the manual testing going away? Right? I don't think
Yep.
so. Manual testing is not going away, but it is taking a different form, because as we do the shift left, especially on the digital applications, we need to upgrade our technical skill set. But the manual testing will still be there in some form to test end to end from a customer standpoint. Because so that will still be there, but the volume of manual testing might diminish, right? In terms of adopting automation and other technical types of testing.
Yeah. Yeah. So I always tell the story. So when I started my career as a tester back in 2000s, and what happened is started running away from automation. But finally, after maybe 6, 7 years, I was tired of running, because you have to learn automation if you are planning to build your career in QA. I learned it the hard way, and finally I had to learn it. So my peers who had learned like along with me 7 years back, and they were in the expert level when I was just getting started. So from that day onwards, I have been promoting every QA. So whoever QA calls me, I always tell them, yeah, please try to learn automation, because automation is where you can actually build your career. Manual testing, yes, it's tough because the number of candidates are very high. At the same time, automation is the future, where I always try to promote the various automation strategies, or the skills which we have to procure during this one. So let's
Yeah.
move on to the next person, Ram Kannappan. So Ram, correct me if I'm
Yeah,
saying
yeah,
your name wrong.
yeah. You
Okay,
can call me Ram.
okay, Ram. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yep, thank you. Thanks for hosting. Good evening, all. Yep, a couple of things I just wanted to share it. One on on the recruitment point of view, what Nishant touched out, right? See, always the recruitment's understanding, right? On the turnover point of view, resources level or understanding between different team members in the team, right? It will be there. So what what we follow is we do exploratory mapping. Okay, so what it will happen is you take a feature and break down into multiple smaller things, and then milestones, and deliberate on that. Any open questions, what are the touch points, and what are the systems, and microservices level, right? You outline, and then you bring it a story also created over there, and then that stories will be mapped to each sprint level, when and what will be delivered, right? So pretty much uh, you will have, when you are taking your future in your hand, you will be having the data also mapped till your production release, until the closure. So that will help, where your business partner can elaborate on your that particular requirement, and then who are that, whether it is developer or tester, everyone in the team, right? So we can bring them on the same page on the understanding point of view. So, okay, so you can iron out all open questions during that meeting. Even if you spend a couple of hours, that is worth, and which will take you long way during the delivery of that particular feature. Okay, so that's one point I just wanted to tell you. And then on the another point, right, on um, uh, your concern specific to third party vendors, right? It's not about the third party vendor integration alone, whether it is within your organization also. If you are in needs to work with other department or other line of business, this will be there, right? So always have that contract testing handy. Okay, so we can use pack builder kind of tools, right? So contact is established between the services, what is expected and what is right. Pact is defined upfront, so that will solve all your integration touch point of view. And once your system is ready, you can test it and keep it ready. Particularly when you have, like you said, a third party vendor involved, their timeline is different. Still your system will be ready, and whenever they are ready, you can immediately hook and deliver it. So that will help you long way, I believe, on the integration point of view. And then another one I just thought of, throw the question specific to to Sudhish or on the panels for so this now as so this outline very clearly on estate requirements, and now it become like for last few years we are in that line. So it become a BAU on the expectation point of view for the QE skill sets, right? So next step from Gen AI or AI
Mhm.
point of view, right? With all what
Mhm.
we hear, what is the expectation, right?
Right, right, right.
How we are going to tackle that as a QE? That's one question
Yeah.
what I wanted to discuss. And another one, actually, with the open source day in and day out, there are
Mhm.
so much constant changes, right? There are security vulnerabilities point of view. We have so much of comes, right. So how what and all we are looking at it, and how we are going to tackle those two things.
Right, right. Absolutely. I think that's a very good question. So when we talk about automation, obviously there will be a question: which kind of tools is widely used, right? So I would say the widely accepted tool across industry is Selenium Java. Now there are a lot of licensed tools like Tricentis, Tosca, and there are so many other tools. Now the problem with all those licensed tools is that there is a cost involved, right? And from time to time the licensing cost increases, and there is a deliberate effort from across the companies to reduce the cost in terms of the tools. Because if you look at the IT spending of all the companies, they spend a lot of money, a big chunk of money on licensing itself. So there is a adoption of open source tools. And when it comes to automation, as I said, it is Selenium Java, which is widely used. And for you to do automation, you need to know good Java and should have good technical skill set. Now, another thing is that when you use any kind of proprietary tool, you have a dependency on that particular vendor to have this framework upgraded from time to time. And if 1 year or certain on a regular period, if they're not upgrading these tools, because sometimes they market these tools that this is free tool, but the underlying framework is kind of proprietary, right? Unless the vendor delivers you the enhancements or the new features in that framework, there is nothing much you can do. And another challenge what I have seen is that when you have like thousands and thousands of test cases or automation scripts created, when you run using these proprietary tools, the performance of the execution is very slow, right? Which means it takes long duration for you to run. But with Selenium Java and this open source tool, you have full control on how you want to do it, and there is so many things you can do if you have good technical skill set to work with that. Now coming to the Gen AI or the AI based, so basically now in the current world, AI is the hype, right? I mean, everybody is talking about AI, and obviously in the software development and testing field also there is penetration of the AI based tools. So what I am foreseeing, so we haven't implemented anything. I don't think from a testing and development perspective, people are still in the mode of trial and error process to figure out how to use this. So what I see is that any form of AI will kind of amplify the work you're doing, right? When you do, let's take automation as an example. So when you implement the AI to your automation execution, what the AI will do is it will learn the defects that you find as a part of the execution. And in that process, it will learn where this defect is occurring, and it will automatically heal those scripts, right? So when what happens is when a error occurs in your automation execution, in the traditional form of automation, the automation will stop there because of that error, and then the tester has to go and fix that issue and then fix the script and then rerun, right? But with the adoption of AI, this is one example. It will identify the error, it will automatically heal your script, and the more you use it, this AI will learn uh, these errors, and it will become more and more efficient, which means it will save your time overhead turnaround time to fix those issues manually, and save your time in terms of the overhead related to that. And as time passes by, as the tool becomes more efficient, it will showcase a better performance. So what I foresee is that whether it is development or testing, the use of AI will amplify your day-to-day process. Whether it is writing the code, I am also hearing and reading that there are tools that is being tried out which can automatically develop your code, right? So it won't replace the development developers. Basically what it will do is it will ease out or amplify the amount of code they can develop in a shorter period of time. So if a developer takes 10 days to write a piece of code, maybe with AI it will reduce to 3 days, right? Because there is a final verification that the development team still has to do. And similarly for testing, with the adoption of AI in different areas, it will amplify the amount of work you can do in a short period of time. So that's the future of AI, what I see.
So these all these big banks across Canada and US, have they started adopting this AI, or at least the POC is have they started looking into these possibilities?
Yeah, every bank, every companies are doing POCs in their specific area to figure out how to efficiently use this AI in a way beneficial for their day-to-day purpose, right? And it is not just specific to the technology team. AI can be used in the business process automation as well. It can be used for interacting with the customers, right? Let's take call center as an example. So there are companies which has implemented chatbots to interact with their customers, which will
Yep.
reduce the number of call center agents they need, right? And this chatbot, as it becomes more efficient, it can uh, answer specific question to the customers. So it is not specific to the technology team, but it is being widely used, but it is still in a very early stage. But I would say that the banks are a little bit more risk averse, because there is a lot of risk associated in using this open what do you call this open source tools related to the AI, because there is
Hmm.
a risk in terms of the privacy, the data collected.
The
So
data.
once all
Yep.
those areas are addressed, we will see more materialistic change in the banks, in the way we run the IT and also deal with the customers. But I
That.
think in the US, the technology companies are the front runner in terms of using the AI. So you might have seen in news that Microsoft has already struck a deal with OpenAI to buy the Chat GPT, right? So
Yep.
everybody is trying to do something with AI, but I think in the next 5 years or so, we'll see a massive change in the way we see things, both in technology and business.
That's great. That's great. Let's get there. It seems
Yep.
like the QA's life is never ending. We have to not only QA, the dev, right? Even the dev, we have to keep on upgrading our skills to learn these new things. And
Yeah.
Ram, do you want to add some? Yeah, sorry,
Yeah,
Sudesh.
sorry. So just to add on one more thing. So people might be thinking, I hear this question in different platforms, that is AI going to replace, take away the jobs of the testers and the developers, right? But I think it is a little bit overhyped. That won't be the case. As I said, it will amplify the amount of work one can do. So maybe you may not need as many testers or developers as you need now, but then that will also open up new opportunities, right?
Yep.
So in order to support the AI, you need different type of people, different skills. So that will uh, trigger different kind of roles and different skill sets and different job opportunities. So that's my take on it.
Yeah. Thanks,
Yeah,
Ram.
my thought also, like, more on how testers should be ready to adopt that needs, and like bots, when some bots are coming, right? It's not that a specific bot who is creating that model and data, right? So testers point of view, how we are going to, for quality engineer point of view, how we are going to respond. So that's in line with that. So AI also, so soon it will be in will be there in across whenever it comes, right? Beforehand, how we are we as a community, right? We need to be prepared enough to handle the work
Yep.
in that one. And another point, so this may be right for the question specifically, like on the open softwares, whatever we use in the development, not only specific to testing community, right? Even if in developer they are using it, right? That will be having dependencies, right? Those dependencies might be called internally some other open APIs, right? So in those vulnerabilities, if at all anything comes, how what and all we need to look at it, and you're
Yeah. So
getting right how
basically,
we
any
should have a
tools,
clear plan. Yeah.
right, right. So any tool that is being adopted in big banks, it will go through a lot of internal process to make sure there is no security vulnerabilities which will risk the reputation or the data of the bank, right? So that it goes through that process. So I don't think there is any risk. The risk is there only if you just take something from the open source and try to implement without the process that need to be followed. So every company has their own process to make sure there is no security vulnerabilities associated with it. Only then you will get approval to use that.
Yeah. Thank you, Sudesh and Ram. So, before, sorry, Nishant, I need to cut you off. Sorry. So, Sudesh, there have been a lot of job seekers currently in the audience. They have been sending me questions for the past 2 days. I've been collecting those questions, and I have 4 or 5 questions. Would you mind answering those things for
Yeah,
the
yeah,
benefit of the job seekers? Okay.
yeah,
So, the
absolutely.
first thing is, yeah, the first thing and the most commonly asked question is that I'm applying for the job, I'm not getting the call. Is it because of my resume or my skill set is not matching? And mostly this is coming from manual QA folks. So whoever is expertise in manual testing. So what is your tip to them or advice to them to get a job here in Canada in QA or
Yeah,
QE?
so yeah, absolutely. So basically, you have to look at what is the job requirement, right? And look at whether you have the skill set that matches with those requirements. If you don't have that skill set, then try to upskill yourself. Because when you look at few job requirements related to your area of interest, you'll clearly understand what are the type of requirements, the skills the employer is looking for. So, in based on that, you need to look at what skill you need to learn. And if you're looking for quality engineering, as we discussed before, you need to have the Selenium Java knowledge. And if it is service layer testing, should have the Rust assured API testing knowledge, right? And you should have, and in some cases, if you're applying for some specific domain, like insurance, they might ask for insurance domain knowledge. And certain skills are nice to have. So as long as you can demonstrate that you have the right attitude and ambition to upskill yourself and learn on the job. So the employer will be ready to compromise on the nice to have skills, right? Now, if you're not getting the call, there are two reasons. One, you don't have the right skills. Two, there might be numerous applicants to that particular role, right? So you may not get shortlisted, right? So that also goes into the fact that you need to make sure you have the right resume, make sure you have the right keywords and the right skills mentioned in your resume, so that when the hiring manager looks at the profile, it stands out.
Thank you.
Sudhish, I would like to add one thing to answer people's question with respect to this particular job call is when you prepare your resume, add something which says as a value add. They might be talking about skill, but with that skill, what they've done in the past and how it has benefited their customer or the employer. So they can add that value add and quantify that value add and then showcase that this is something that I have really brought onto the table that might catch the eye of the recruiter. So you were spot on with all the other points, but this is something that I really felt that people are
Yep.
missing.
No,
Yeah,
that's a,
yeah,
that's a good point,
absolutely.
Nisha. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Sudhish. Sudhish, you actually answered three questions which I was supposed to ask. So, one is what are the skill set which is required, and how to do it. So, you answered all those three. So, let me get into the next one.
Yeah, I see we
So,
have like 118 people on the call. Do we have any questions from any of the
yeah, yeah. In case
audience?
anybody has any question, just raise your hand. Come here. I mean, come to the speaker panel. You can ask the question. So, I'll open up for the audience. Anyone out of this 118 people who are in the audience, do you have any questions directly to Sudhish? Feel free to just raise hand. I'll be promoting you to speaker. Hmm, that's strange. Okay. No
I have a
worries.
question,
Yeah.
Sudhir. One
Yes,
second.
I did.
Not feeling well, so pardon the voice. Now, Sudhish, you covered up. Actually, you covered my one question and one sub question, but I just want from a layman's term, right? Why aren't QA people applying QA techniques on their job search and resume? A simple thing that I and Sudhir have found many times is, let's say you have your resume and we say that these are the changes that you have to make. The problem is either they don't make the changes, or when they're making the changes, they remove the things that should be there and then they put new things, right? So what happens is we are back to square one. So that is one in terms of resume. Then the second question in sub question in that is, you mentioned very beautifully as to what is required for a SDET in Canada. My question is, for a person who is from outside Canada, do you see a huge gap in skill set? And when you say you need to bridge the gap, it is not just mentioning those keywords in the resume, right? The problem that most of the people face is when they go for the interview in the first round itself, the technical manager is able to gauge as to whether this person actually knows the stuff that he is putting or he or she is putting in the resume. So those are my two questions, Suresh.
Sorry, can you please repeat the question? I didn't catch that completely.
Yeah, my first question is, why don't QA people or QE people apply those techniques in building their resume or even in their job search?
I'll take that question, Sajid. I'll take the question. Yeah. Second question you can ask Sudhish.
Yeah. So the second question is, you mentioned as to what SDT skills are required in Canada. For a person coming from any part of the world, Europe or Asia or any part, do you find that there's a gap in the skill set that is required that they have and what is required in Canada?
Right, right. So I don't see any gap in terms of the technical skills if you hire somebody from Europe, India, or US. The only gap I might see is that the big employees in Canada are the five major banks and a few telecom companies, right? So if you hire somebody from India, they may not have the same expertise of working with the stakeholders in a big organization like a bank or telecom company here. So because if you take India as an example, we have a lot of software IT companies, and they have different clients, right? And some of these people might have been working for some retail client for a prolonged period of time, and their things might work differently, or they might have been working for a product company. So I think there is a cultural gap when they join uh, any company in India, in Canada. Apart from that technical skill set, I don't think Canada has any IT companies in Canada has any specific skills that elsewhere doesn't have.
Thank you. Thanks, Sudesh.
Yep.
Yeah, we
Just
have.
one quick addition there. So the technical skill sets, it's up to the candidate to scale up right to the needs. How much effort we are putting and getting into it. But there were one clear distinction. What I see in Canada is when I landed. Every companies right they were looking at it as specific to Canadian experience. I believe it's a couple of month back or something. Recent amendments say they brought it that these companies should not look at Canadian experience one added. Maybe going forward that might be taken out. I believe that may help for
Yeah,
the
I think for
newcomers.
the IT world in Canada, nobody's looking at Canadian experience anymore. I think we stopped looking at it maybe 4 or 5 years back. But you're right. Way back in like 2008, 9, 10, that time period, I remember like these companies were asking for Canadian experience. But with the current requirement in terms of technical profiles that is required, I see that people are getting offers. I mean, I'm talking about the pandemic time. There were instances people were getting offers when they were based out of India with a valid PR. So that was the talent gap and requirements that we had here. So
Yep.
yeah.
Thank you, Sudesh. We have Win here. Win, sorry, man, I didn't see you. Yeah.
No,
Tell me.
thank you, Sudhir.
Yeah, yeah,
No, I was
please.
waiting for somebody to raise a hand, and that's why. Anyway, thanks a lot,
Yeah,
Sudhir, for this session. Thanks, Suresh, Sajid. Hi. Um, so, Sudhish, I have two questions actually. So, as you might be knowing, like this QE thing, actually, it was there a long time ago too. It kind of took flight somewhere between, I guess, 2012 to 2015. It looked like it started picking up, but didn't take flight quite. And if in current today too, if you look at the FANG organizations, if you look at the SDT roles, hardly any of those FANG organizations promoting, like for example, or I know Microsoft has only one SDT role posted, and even Netflix has only maybe a couple, and the rest of them are not even talking about that. So my question is, but so how is this like, it'll slowly become a trend after this big organizations pick up the trend? That one. And the second one is, if I want to bring this into a team who do not have this concept yet, or brand new, they are into traditional or a little bit of agile frameworks. How would I introduce this to the team? And I know you did mention about some skills, but apart from the tools and the QA mindset, what are the specific soft skills should a team member have? And you just also mentioned that you did upskilling within your team as well. How did you achieve that upskilling of your own team? Like, how did you bring this to? I mean, it's not concept is not new, but it's there. But how did you do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So if I start with the last question, so upskilling the team. So basically, my team was ramped up predominantly during the pandemic time, ramped up to a huge number. I have like a 120 plus team. So majority of the team members, the FTs were hired during the between 2020 to 2022. So at that time, we made deliberate effort to make sure the bars are set high and we hire the right talent. Right. So that's how we addressed in one way. The other way, for the existing employees, we had our own QE curriculum and training plan, using which we made sure we are encouraging the people to take the training. And also we built a culture within the team where the experienced people in the team who knows the technical skills, automation, they're supporting the other resources who are trying to learn. And so it's all about building that culture within the team, right? To upskill and recognize the people who are upskilling and
Yeah.
encouraging them to do that. Yeah, and what was the other question? The first question that you asked?
The first question is, so I was like thinking, like if you actually the first question was, how do I introduce this concept into the team at all? Actually, showing the capabilities of this,
Yeah. So there is another aspect to it, right? So if you take a bank or any big corporates like bank, they have two types of application: one the backend application, and the other one digital front end applications. So
Yeah.
predominantly it is easy to implement these concepts in terms of delivery into the digital applications, where it is easy to automate, easy to test, and it doesn't have like big long, what do you call, the business rules or
Yeah.
the screens to navigate to complete a transaction. Whereas when you go to the backend applications, it might be more of legacy, and some of the highly complex business rules are on the backend systems, right? So that's where you find more challenging to implement this, right? So we should have the right stakeholder support and understanding with our stakeholders and agreement on how we are going to implement this. And it's part of the company culture as well. We should have the right delivery model set up first, which supports the SDET and the quality engineering. Because if your entire delivery team is running in a traditional fashion, then there is
Yeah.
nothing much you can do, right? So it's a part of
Yeah.
the company culture,
Yeah.
how the whole delivery transformation and the quality engineering goes hand in hand.
Yeah. So one last thing on that. So you said, banks and all these organizations are kind of picking it up. But, I know you mentioned about Amazon, said the delivery process, and I see Amazon is kind of quite promoting they have quite a bit of roles for SDE, but to give a context, the other companies like Microsoft, the other big ones are not promoting. Do you see that in future that's happening?
Am I-
Hello, can you hear me?
yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah, sorry. So, among the big FANG companies, it's only Amazon that's kind of promoting these SDE roles, but not the other ones. But do you see the other big companies like Facebook and Netflix and Google picking it up?
Yeah, so even in, see, I mean, SDET, they may not be using the term SDET as such, right? They might be advertising it in a
Yes.
different way. Even if you
Yeah.
look at the job opportunities of Google right from 2005, they'll ask
Yes.
for Python knowledge, C knowledge, C++, even for a tester,
Right.
right? So they may not be
Right.
calling them as SDET, but essentially they're doing the same function as an SDET.
I
So,
see. Okay. Okay. Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Got
Right.
it. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you,
Suresh.
Vin. So we'll go with Jim's.
Yep. Thank you, Sudhir. I appreciate me giving this opportunity, and I also appreciate all these small things that you do by giving back to the society. I just have a small question. I come from a testing background recently. From the past 6 years, I've been into project management. Now, within the project management circle, you have a very big organization called as PMI, and then you have their own big certifications, CAPM, PMP. Back in the days, with respect to software testing, there used to be something, I mean, there's still something called as ISTQB, where you have different certifications like testing foundations, and then you have certified test analyst, certified technical test analyst, certified test manager. I, for some reason, I have not seen that kind of popularity here in Canada with respect to ISTQB certifications. What is your take
Mhm.
on that?
Yeah, I mean, we used to have this popularity for CST and ISTQB, I would say between 2000 to 2014, 15. But with the advent of this delivery transformation, Agile, SDET, the technical skills started getting more precedence. As a result, the popularity of all other non-technical certifications and training started diminishing. But I would still say that the CST or ISTQB, any testing certification that you take, is good to upskill your testing skill set, because you need to have that fundamental knowledge on what is the overall testing, right? So it is
Hmm.
still good in that aspect. So right now the focus is more on technical skills. That's why you're not hearing much talk about other non-technical skill sets and
So,
training.
with respect to someone who would want to excel in the testing career in Canada, what kind of certifications list is there a list that you could probably give it to the audience? Something that's a must-have or a nice to have?
See, I mean, to be frank with you, the certification is not going to do much, right? I mean, certification, let's say the hiring manager is looking at two resources, both have the same technical skills, and the one person has additional certifications on ISTQB or CST or certain other certifications, and maybe he or she will consider the person who has those certifications. Otherwise, if the hiring manager has somebody who doesn't have any certification, but that person really excelled in the interview and has all the right skills that he's looking for, but the other person doesn't have that skills but has a bunch of certification, it's not going to do any good. So it's kind of an ISI mark on the top of the basic skills
Right,
that
right.
employer is looking on you. That's all.
So this, there's one thing that I wanted to specifically ask. Probably this will help to even people who are focusing more on the manual QA side, right? Is the focus on the
Sorry to interrupt, cut you off. Just one more thing to add. Now, another advantage is that when you have certification, especially technical certifications, right? The chance of getting shortlisted your resume by the hiring manager might be more easy, right? When you see like 100, 200 applicants for one position, this will stand out. So that's another advantage. Sorry about that. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah,
You're saying
please go ahead,
something.
Nisha.
Yeah. So from the back end applications, the processes that you mentioned, right, which is more difficult, which is more complex. So that is something that, as part of the larger digital footprint that every organization is now trying to achieve. All major five banks, the either retail industry or the telecom industry in Canada. The migration or the digital transformation towards cloud is something that has been phenomenal for like last 3 4 years, and everybody is doing that. Now, what I see is from the back end job processing. So, if I'm testing a bad jobs, for example, there I might not be using Selenium, there I might not be using UFT or any other kind of automation tool. But what comes more handy or more informative is the hands-on knowledge that people have on the database side, on the SQL side, and able to understand the main business logic as how the business functions. So that is something that is truly and critically missing in majority of the people who are actually still working in the organization. This is something that I've seen across
Yeah.
places that I've worked, specifically in the QA side, where they tend to miss the larger picture and they don't know what exactly is happening, where they probably work on a specific subtask rather than looking at the bigger picture. Now, how do
Yeah.
we resolve it when is the question? Because one thing that I felt was having a better knowledge management library, which basically helps to retain the knowledge as well as improve the talent. And second, what are the ways of bringing automation to these areas where we don't have any automation?
Right. So, see, I mean, that's a very good point. So, every company, they will have a data and analytics department, right? Especially when it comes to bank, there will be a big line of business itself who will look into the data warehouse, the analytics and reporting, using that data coming out of that data warehouse. So that's where you need a lot of backend knowledge, database knowledge, SQL knowledge, or any other tools what they are using, or depending on the technology and the database they are using, the tools and the skill set related to that. So yeah, that's where you need more of this manual intervention. But still, in terms of validating the input versus output results, there are a lot of tools available, and I don't remember the name of the tool, but there are tools available specific to those type of areas, which can be used to test the input and output result as a part of your batch process, right? Now, another thing is that in order for you to test, you may have to run some batch. So there are ways and technologies using which you can automate your batch process, so that you don't have to sit there and trigger the batch process one by one in order to run your batch and the test cases.
No, that's right. I'm telling you because this is something that I'm,
Nishanda,
completely.
sorry, Nishant, cut you off because we are already past 10 minutes of our scheduled end time. Okay, so maybe we'll take it up in a different session because I was thinking to connect with Ram offline to see he brought in some interesting point. So I was just trying to connect with Ram offline to see whether might be interesting. it in a separate session,
Yeah. So
how he
Sudhir,
has achieved.
Yeah,
I
sure.
Yes.
see two people has raised the hands.
Yes, we'll take those two questions and then. Hey, Sriram, please go ahead.
Thank you, Sudhir and Sudhish, and good evening to all the stakeholders who are all present here in this group. I have I have two questions basically. So I have 5 years of manual testing experience from my home country. As Sudhir said, most of my experience is from manual testing background. So I am here in Canada for the past 2 months, and I'm actively applying for several positions that have roles and responsibilities that only revolve around manual testing. So through immigration support groups, I was advised to include keywords to pass the ATS checks. Even upon including that, my resume was not getting picked up. Should I upskill through online courses and then starting applying for the jobs going forward? Or considering my personal economic situation, like say I'm spending the savings from my home country right now, should I continue to apply for manual testing jobs and then learn automation on the job? So the second question is, how important is networking for getting QA jobs? Should we approach for effective? Whom should we approach for effective networking?
Yeah.
Like
Contact Sudhir. He's the best person for that.
So maybe Sudhi, you can take the first question. So
Yeah.
Sriram, you can reach out to me. We have a kind of WhatsApp group where we post jobs which are coming our way. So we
okay,
post at least 20 to 100 jobs per day, depending upon the number of postings. So we try to repost it and we share it in those WhatsApp group. You can PM me for getting added to the WhatsApp group. You
Yeah.
can
sure,
connect
Sudhir.
with other few folks also.
Right,
Yes,
right.
Sudhi.
So to answer your first question, so you asked a question: should you upskill once you get the manual testing job? I mean, sure. I mean, if you don't have a job now, if you are getting a manual testing job, take that job, then upskill yourself. Why wouldn't you take that job if you're
Sure,
getting
Sudhir.
an offer? Yeah,
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Sudhir.
no
Thank you, Sudhir.
problem.
Okay, Purnima.
Hey, hi.
Hey.
Thank you for giving this opportunity. My query is, and I have to give my brief introduction also. One is, how is the market for freshers in Canada? And
Mhm.
actually, after coming to Canada, I changed my career to quality analyst. For that, so I did one diploma course in vocational college also. It was 9 month course. In my intern in that course, it's contain intern also. In that intern period, I did both manual testing and automation testing by using the Python language with Selenium. Now I am learning Java also. I am looking for my job from last 1 year, but no
Mhm.
calls. Any suggestion for this?
Yeah.
I
So
am
you
in
said,
right path or not? I want to check I'm in right path or not.
yeah. So you're a
So
fresher, right? So when did you graduate?
I graduated 2016. After
2000.
that, I did manual testing in my one company. 2 years,
Okay.
I did one manual testing also.
All right. So if you have only the basic skills, there are different companies like the FDM, and there
Okay.
is another company. I forgot the name. So what they will do, they will take people with who want to switch career or who is like fresh out of the university who is looking for a job,
Okay.
and they will give you training, and then based on that, they will uh, give you contract jobs within one of these banks.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's called Career Edge. So Career Edge and FDM. So these are the two companies where you can
Okay.
try to get an entry level role.
Okay.
And
Uh, h-
yeah,
how can I apply for this one? First, I have to take a course, then I can do that. This one.
no, I don't think you need to take a course. These are like entry level companies. So what they do, they train you, then they will give you deputation in certain companies.
Okay.
And if you perform well, those companies can make you full time after 1 or 2 years.
Okay. Okay. If I want to consult them means through website, I have to
Yeah.
go through.
So
Yep.
you
Okay.
have to go to Career Edge website and fill the application, and then they will call you.
Okay.
And there is another company, FDM. You can try with FDM as well.
Okay.
They,
Great.
they
Great.
hire only entry level candidates.
Okay. Great. It's
Yeah.
a great info. Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So I think we can wind up. So thank you, Sudhish, for sharing all these great information with all of us. And thanks everyone for attending this session. And this session is recorded and it's been given in the YouTube. I have posted the link in the chat. So if in case you want to, in case anyone missed the initial part of the session, feel free to just watch our YouTube. And Sudhish, any closing comments?
Nothing much. So thank you everyone for attending this session. I hope this was helpful in some way. And thank you, Sudhir, for hosting this session and inviting me. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. So thanks everyone, and we are having upcoming sessions like Wednesday. We have one virtual session. Tomorrow we have an in-person a PMO meetup. Something I have posted it. If you go to my LinkedIn and check, I have posted all the meetups in the upcoming few days before the holidays. So in case anyone is interested in attending those meetups, feel free to be a part of those meetups. Okay, thank you everyone. Thanks for attending and have a good night and good luck with everyone. And thank you, Sudhish.
Thank
Okay,
you. Have a good
thank you.
night. Bye.
Bye.